So now let's talk about EC2 spot instances. So we know that with spot instances, we can get a discount of up to 90% compared to on-demand instances. How does it work to get a spot instance? Well, you're going to define a max spot price you're willing to pay, and you will get the EC2 instance, the spot instance, as long as the current spot price is below the max you are willing to spend. So this hourly spot price will vary based on offering capacity, and I will show you this in the next slide. And so if the current spot price goes over your max price, then you can choose to either stop or terminate your instance, and you have a 2 minutes grace period. So based on your workload and your application, as soon as you have notification that you're about to be stopped or terminated, you need to do some shutdown, some saving of some documents, saving of data to stop serving traffic as well, to make sure that you can gracefully shut down and that your workload is adapted to this kind of situations. So spot instances are best used for batch jobs, data analysis, or workloads that are, of course, are resilient to failures, because you will get stopping and termination of your instances. It's definitely not great for critical jobs or databases. Now let's have a look at the spot instance pricing. So this is a graph that I obtained directly from the AWS console. And as we can see here, this gives us the price for a M4 large instance over 3 months in the spot zone. So as you can see, you have 6 lines for US East 1A. The region, and you have 6 availability zones, so 6 prices. So as you can see, the spot price does vary based on the AZ you're considering. And so as we can see, over 3 months, it has varied quite a bit. For example, if you look at that yellow line, it has varied between 0.4 to 0.45, all the way down to almost 0.35, let's say, and so on. And so let's assume that we are defining a user-defined max price to be this black horizontal bar, dotted line, okay? And so what we see is that if the yellow line is above the dotted line, then the current spot price is going to be more than the max price we have defined. And so in this instance, right here, we're going to lose our spot instance. So we have to terminate it or stop it. But if the price goes down, so if the yellow line goes down, our dotted line, that means that we are willing to pay that price, and so we are gaining that spot instance in this meantime. So this is how we can optimize the cost of our workload very easily. And so as you can see, the on-demand price is $0.10 per hour, so that's really, really cheap. And then the spot instance price is even cheaper. It's around 0.4, I would say, so it's a 60% saving in that instance for the spot instance pricing, so lots of savings. And obviously, if you were to define your user-defined max price to be something like $0.05 per hour, then no spot instances would be reclaimed, because you're always willing to pay more than the actual spot instance price. So no one can predict how the price goes over time, but as you can see, it can be rather stable. It can fluctuate a little bit, but overall, it still provides you huge savings compared to on-demand, okay? Okay, next. How do you terminate a spot instance? So we have to first understand how a spot request works. And so for this, let's consider a spot request. So with a spot request, you are defining how many instances you want, your maximum price you're going to pay, the launch specification, so the AMI and so on, and when your request is valid from and until, but it could be infinite, and then the request type. And that's very important to understand. There are 2 types of requests. You can do a one-time request for spot instances or a persistent request for post instances. So let's have a look at the difference. So if it's a one-time request, as soon as your spot request is fulfilled, your instances are going to be launched, and then your spot request will go away because it was a one-time request type. So in this case, your spot request is going to go away and you're fine. But if it's a persistent request type, that means that we want this number of instances to be valid as long as the spot request is valid from to valid until. And so that means that if somehow your instances do get stopped, okay, or interrupted based on the spot price, then your spot request will go back into action, and when things can be validated, will restart spot instances for you. So if somehow you stop a spot instance in persistent mode and your spot request is still active, your spot request automatically will be smart enough to restart a launch an instance for you. And this is something you can also see in this diagram, but I won't spend too much time on it. So what you understand out of it is that if you want to cancel a spot request, it needs to be in the open state, the active state, or the disabled state. That means that basically it's not failed, it's not canceled, or it's not closed. Okay. And when you want to cancel a spot request, so if you take the spot request on the left hand side and you cancel it, it's not going to terminate any instances that you have launched from before. So it is still your responsibility to terminate these instances and not the responsibility of AWS. So as such, if you want to terminate Spot instances for good and not have them relaunched, you need to first cancel the Spot request and then you terminate the associated Spot instances. Because if you were to terminate the Spot instances first, remember it goes back into the Spot request and the Spot request says, okay, you wanted 6 instances, but I can see you have 0 right now. I'm going to launch 6 instances for you. So again, the right order to cancel and to terminate Spot instances is to first cancel the Spot request to make sure that no new instances will be launched by AWS, and then you terminate the associated Spot instances. And I'm spending a bit of time on this because this is something that can come up in the exam. Okay, next, Spot fleets. So this is the ultimate way to save money. So Spot fleets is going to be a way to define for you to get a set of Spot instances and optionally on-demand instances. That's why it's called a fleet. And the Spot fleet will try its best to meet the target capacity with the price constraints you defined. So it will launch from possible launch pools. So it can have different instance types, different OS, and availability zones. And so you're going to define multiple launch pools, so multiple instance types, multiple everything. And then the fleet will choose the best and most appropriate launch pool for you. And when your Spot fleet either reaches your budget or reaches the capacity you wanted, then it will stop launching instances. And so you define a strategy to allocate Spot instances in your Spot fleet, and that's something to remember. The first one is lowest price, and that's going to be the most popular one going into the exam, which is that the Spot fleet will launch instances from the pool that has the lowest price, and that gives you a lot of cost optimization, and this is a great option if you have a very short workload. You can also have a diversified way to launch your Spot instances, in which case the Spot instances will be distributed across all the pools that you have defined from before, which is great for availability and long workloads, because if one pool goes away, then your other pools are still active. Then you have capacity optimized, so you have a pool with the optimal capacity for the number of instances you want. And then you have price capacity optimized, which is first choosing the pool with the highest capacity available, and then select within that the one that has the lowest price, which is the best choice for most workloads. So the idea is that Spot fleets can be complicated, but what you have to remember is that using the Spot fleet, you're able to define multiple launch pools, multiple instance types, and so you're just interested in raw power. And then if you use the lowest price discount, the lowest price strategy for Spot fleets, then the Spot fleets will automatically request the Spot instances with the lowest price for us. And so Spot fleet gives us an extra saving based on Spot instances because it's smart enough to choose the right Spot instance pool to allow us to get the maximum amount of savings. And this is the benefits of Spot fleets. And again, you need to understand the difference here of doing a very simple Spot instance request where you know exactly the type of instance you want and the AZ you want, to using a Spot fleet and saying, okay, you can choose all these instance types and all these AZ, and what I need from you is to give me the lowest price, for example. Okay, so that's hopefully is giving you a lot of insights into how Spot fleets and Spot instances are different. I hope you like this lecture, and I will see you in the next lecture.